getting into a good top of the backswing position is really, really important if you want to hit decent golf shots. While we're not hitting the ball with the backswing, we're putting the club in a position that allows us to consistently deliver the club the same way into the ball. So making sure our backswing is in the right positions and is consistent is really important. But it's easy to overcomplicate the backswing. So what I'm going to try and do today is just break it down into 3 separate parts that if you're hitting all of these checkpoints, you should be in a pretty good position to consistently deliver the golf club. And those 3 parts are the takeaway, the shoulder turn, and also the wrist positions. And again, I said I was going to make it simple, and I've hit you with 3 potentially confusing golf terms, but don't worry, I'm going to make this as simple as possible. So the takeaway, quite simply, is the position we move from our address position to when the club first reaches parallel to the ground in this position. And there's a couple of bits we need to see here. One checkpoint is a square club face. So a square club face basically means that the leading edge of the club here matches the angle that I create with my spine in the backswing. So the way to see that is in a down the line view. As the club comes straight back, we want this edge matching my spine angle. If it's pointing too much up to the sky, that's too open, that's likely to lead to right golf shots. Too much down towards the ground, and again, that's going to close club face, likely to send the ball a little bit left. So perfectly square club face at this part of the swing, really important. The takeaway sets the tone for the rest of the backswing, so making sure we're hitting good checkpoint positions here is really important. The second important thing with the takeaway is to make sure it's on plane, and basically that means that the club, when it reaches parallel with the ground, is pointing in a straight line towards our target. One really common thing I see here is people roll their hands out, and the club now goes inside my hand. You can see this is now pointing to the right of target. And again, the opposite would be people that are a little bit too steep. Club is now outside my hands, club is pointing left to the target. And again, anytime this is off position, I'm going to have to manipulate it a little bit to get the club back down into the ball. And by definition, anytime I'm manipulating the club, it's not going to be as consistent as when I don't have to. So that's the takeaway. The next position we talked about is shoulder turn or shoulder plane. And what I mean by that is once the club is in this position, I've done my takeaway, it's on plane. What I need to see is a shoulder plane or a shoulder turn that's pointing almost down towards the ball there. And the way I think about this is once the club is in this position, I'm going to get my lead shoulder. So for a right-handed golfer, that's your left shoulder. And I'm going to try to feel, as I transfer my weight, like my lead shoulder points down towards my trail foot like this. Okay, I don't oftentimes see people that are too steep in their shoulder plane. It does happen, but it's not as common. More likely, I'm going to see people that are too flat, which is sort of the impression of standing up a little bit or losing their posture. Their shoulders turn on a level plane. And again, that gets the club in all sorts of strange positions. It's going to require a lot of manipulation to get the club back down. So 2 parts so far. Takeaway this way, on plane, square club face. Left shoulder down towards right foot, and that will complete the backswing there. Okay, one more thing to think about, and this is the position of your wrists. 2 things we need to get right here. Left wrist or lead wrist is going to hopefully stay pretty flat with my forearm. So that down the line looks like this. Okay, a cup left wrist is going to be an open club face. An overly bowed left wrist, which is this way, is going to really close the club face there. Okay, so you can see how you can see a lot of the club face, a lot of the leading edge. That's because my left wrist is in too much of a bowed position. This is likely, without manipulation, going to leave me a bit of a hook. So left wrist we know needs to be nice and flat. Probably more important is the position of my trail wrist. So for me, that's my right hand. And what we want to see here at the top of the backswing is the right wrist in extension, and basically that means the back of my right hand here is closer to my forearm than it is far away. Again, this has a lot of influence over where the club face is pointing. It also has a lot of influence over where the club is. Generally, if you're too steep, which is quite common in the backswing, we're not going to see enough extension in that right wrist. And again, that you see how much that steepens the club shaft. It's going to make it really tricky to make consistent contact from there. So we're hopefully seeing a flat left wrist here and a right wrist that's in extension. So the 3 parts again, if we put them all together now, would be a takeaway that's on plane, club face nice and square. Next move is to turn my shoulders, and as I do that, we're now also going to think about the conditions that our wrists are in. So I've got a nice flat left wrist there. I've got my right wrist in extension, and again, that means the club face is square, it means the club is on plane. Another nice way to think about that right wrist position is a couple of analogies. People talk about waiter holding a tray. Again, you can see how that from here is going to keep my right wrist in extension. The analogy I like is giving blood. So again, if you were giving blood, think about the position your arm would be in. You'd have a bit of extension in your wrist there and you're trying to expose your forearm. It's exactly the same thing here. Once you've done that, try and rehearse it in stages. So we talked about breaking that down into 2 or 3 parts, but we need to first of all make sure that takeaway is on plane. Then we'll do our shoulder plane and we'll think about our wrists as well. Once you've had a few rehearsals doing this, try and put it together in a practice swing, and then you're ready to try it with the ball. Again, like we said at the beginning of the video, I'm not hitting the ball with a backswing, but I am creating positions and sort of conditions that I can move the club into the ball effectively and consistently on the same plane. So if our backswing's off, it requires a lot of manipulation. Manipulation is never going to be consistent. So make sure, first of all, before you start to think about impact and compressing the ball in your downswing, let's get that backswing in a good position that allows us to do that.